What is the greatest difference in your training off-season as compared to 2 months before a competition?
My actual training really doesn't change that much. You know, when I'm training my biceps or my chest, I do basically the same things, but I add aerobics to my routine 2 months before a show. You know, I go up to 2 hours a day on a stationary bike or running stairs or swimming or tennis. You know, walking's great. I do all different types of aerobics to, you know, to give it a variety. And also my diet changes quite a bit. I drop calories, and I usually stagger my calories. One day I go 1,000, one day 1,200, 1,500, just so the body doesn't adjust. And I take in actually no fat, you know, very little fat, if any. And my training's about the same, but my diet and aerobics, you know, are the only thing that differ.
I start riding the bike. That's the major difference. I don't have to diet a lot. My training doesn't change drastically other than I increase my weight right around training time, which is the opposite of what a lot of people do.
My training really doesn't vary at all through the year. I only know one way to train, and that's all out. There are times, of course, when your workouts aren't as intense as they are pre-contest, but pretty much my workouts stay the same. I don't normally change repetitions or weight. I enjoy working with the heavy weight, so I continue to work with that up through competition time. I'm always trying, even the last week before a show, it seems, to make those improvements. So if my mindset is to improve throughout the year, then I just continue that way. Whatever I find works for me, I will use right up until the show.
Well, that's a good question, because my training really doesn't vary that much between the off-season and the in-season. I have what you call a very fast metabolism, and every bodybuilder is different, so I don't know how most bodybuilders work, but I don't change too much. I diet maybe 4 to 5 weeks before a show, but basically my diet is fairly good during the season. Only thing I like to do in the off-season to gain more muscle mass is I lower the repetitions that I'm using when I'm working out, and I try and use a lot more heavier weight to build up a little more muscle mass. But as far as everything changing drastically before a competition, it really doesn't change that much. So that's why it's not hard for me to continue to compete, as I've been doing for the last 28 years, and it won't be hard for me to continue to compete for the next 10 years, because it isn't that difficult for me. And plus, I think the attitude is a lot also when you're competing in shows.
Well, over the years, your body changes, and you can't always do what you did the year before. Sometimes you have to change, so it's always a changing thing. But the main thing is you keep up a good training schedule the whole year through, maybe not so intense in the off-season, but close to a contest, the intensity does get higher, but the main thing is the change in diet.
With me, the only difference in the off-season, if there is an off-season now, being a pro, is the intensity level. Exercises don't really change radically. Diet doesn't really change that greatly. The only thing that does change, and changes quite a bit, is the intensity. By intensity, I mean the seriousness with which I train in the gym. Prior to a show, everything is all business. I mean, I don't goof around in the gym. I don't really talk to anyone other than my training partner. And the only thing that's in my mind is what's ahead within the next 8 to 12 weeks. In the off-season, you know, I may take a bit longer rest between sets. I may smile here and there. I may goof around a little bit when there's no contest coming up. Other than that, basically everything remains the same.
I would say intensity. You know, in off-season, your concept of training is to build more muscle. And when it comes time for contest preparation, what you want to do is refine everything so that you can see the product that has been worked on, you know, in the off-season. And so I think it's intensity that happens, you know, and that intensity helps me to create the physique that I want to show to the audience.
That's probably the most difficult question for me, because I've been changing this. It used to be not much different at all. And then when I saw that I wasn't making such good, you know, as fast of gains as I wanted to, I decided to change it a little bit. I think the main difference is my attitude toward my training. I'm not quite as hyped up on the off season. I have a better mental focus on what I need to work on the long term. You know, you're kind of hurrying to get body parts developed that you haven't developed earlier on in the year. It doesn't work. I think I almost have a better focus because it's more productive, it's calmer on the off season. Before a contest, I definitely make my training a priority, even though I might not train much more. The intensity might be a little more, but not much.
There's not much difference in the training per se. You know, I believe that what put the muscle there in the first place is what's going to keep the muscle there. However, there are changes in my caloric intake, and of course I add aerobics to reduce body fat levels, so I think that that's the biggest difference.
I train all year round. I don't have a real off-season. I just keep on training. The only time I train less is when I'm out on holidays. Usually I go to France, but even then I train a little. I never go to a place where I can't find a gym. Well, what I train different is more. A lot of people train more when they go to a contest. Instead I train less. The closer I come to the contest, the lesser I train. Because I think when I'm on a diet, I want to keep the muscles that I worked for off season. And I can't win any more muscles in the last few weeks. So what I try to do is to keep the muscles I got before and get only rid of the fat. So I have to train less and just keep the muscles I have.
Oh, not so much. The only what I do for preparation is I train every year 6 days in a week, 3 days, 1 day rest, another 3 days. And the only what I do for the preparation is I do 2 or 3 more sets per muscle part and per exercise. That's all. And I think I did it well.
Off season, I'm a typical Italian, you know. I have Italian mother and I like to eat, but in off season, I'm known for being a heavy trainer. I basically go low reps and I'm kind of consider myself a power bodybuilder. Last year my body weight was a little bit too high. I went up to about 255 pounds, which is too heavy for me. This year I will stay at about 230, 235. And when I start preparation for the Olympia next year, I want to start at about between 225 and 230. Because last year the diet killed me towards the end. But I think you have to put on some body fat to grow in off-season. Plus it seems that I lose my hair when my body fat is too low. So it's either I'll be fat and happy or I'll be bald and lean. So I think I'll be fat and happy in the off-season.
My training doesn't really change that much because I do lots of guest appearances and some modeling too. So I have to stay on a good training program all year long, and I also have to watch my diet pretty closely. So really the technical parts don't change, but it's the mental focus that changes. 2 months before, you just start to concentrate really hard on your goal, and you start working more and more intensely towards that. And your workouts kind of get harder and harder. You push yourself more and more. And then the last 3 weeks, the competition is the only thing you are thinking about. And that's the same in every sport, for every athlete. They have to have that tunnel vision, and they have to believe in themselves to do well in the competition. So I would say that the main difference is just the mental approach